Hello, I'm Bree. I am the history half of Pontifex, and our show just turned 2 years old. And this is not our anniversary special. This is just me in my office with my computer answering a few AMA questions leading up to our anniversary special, which should be coming out next week, which is going to be really exciting because it is a full-on Pope-themed D&D adventure that we were able to get some amazing podcasters to come and play with us and a couple others to lend their voices to. So I'm very excited for you to all hear that. But in the interim, since we're on a bi-weekly schedule right now, I'm just going to release a couple videos this week going over some AMA questions that you have sent in. So this is part one. The first question is from Derek from the Hellenistic Age podcast, and he said, outside of Pope related stuff, what are your favorite historical periods and subjects? If you know me, the answer is the Medici. I am obsessed with everything Italian Renaissance, especially Florence and the Medici family. That's my actual area of study and my biggest passion in all of history. I love Cosimo the Elder, Lorenzo de' Medici the Magnificent, and then, of course, Cosimo the first Duke of Florence is where I was dedicating my professional study to. So I love that. I love Julio Claudian Rome. I love one of the tutors, Edward VI. I really enjoy him. And subject-wise, I really like the political history of art and architecture as and the patronage dynamic as a sort of projection or expression of power. Really interested in the history of humanism, and the history of disability is a new big passion of mine based on what I do for a living. And I'm interested in looking at how disability was perceived, how disability was responded to. Yeah, so those are my favorites. The second one comes from Knowledge Voyage on Twitter, who asked, what are your thoughts on the sedevacantist movements? And I took a couple notes here because this is a little bit of a wild journey. The sedevacantist movement is like a branch of Catholics who believe that the person who is currently the Pope is not the Pope because of the what they call the heresy of modernism, and they believe that the apostolic see, has been vacant since Vatican II because they're rejecting the advancements or the modifications to Catholicism that were made at that council. So they believe it's been vacant since the death of Pope Pius XII in 1958. I think it's wild. I don't know how anybody could be thinking that way. It makes no sense to me. It feels particularly ridiculous today with Pope Francis as the Pope because I think he's very compassionate, and I think that he's got a very humble view of Catholicism and it feels very genuine, but that's my own personal view on that. I just think that calling Francis a heretic over the whole Amor Laetitia bill, or the encyclical that he released, it's silly and strange, but you know, there are people who have very firmly vested beliefs in that, and yeah, well, they're just gonna do their stuff, I guess. I can't really give it much more attention because I think it's just kind of strange and doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Ethan Johnson from the History of How We Play asked if we've had any repeat ghost showings, and the answer to that is no. Pope Eugene has not returned to either my house or Fry's house, but I have reflexively every time I hear a sound that I don't know where it's coming from, or if something falls unexpectedly, I go, Pope Eugene! So I think that's going to be a lasting moment for us. And then David Montgomery from the Siècle podcast followed up on that question and asked, if we could be haunted by one pope, which pope would we want to be haunted by? And I think this comes down to depending what type of haunting I would want, because if I wanted like the full-on spooky experience, Sylvester too would probably be the guy with all his demons and his bone rattling and all of that. He would be a super active haunted ghost, and I love that kind of stuff. So maybe that. But I would probably, if I were not wanting to be inconvenienced, maybe like Celestine V or Telesphorus, because they're hermits and they really don't want to be bothered, so they'd probably leave me alone. And the last one for part one is from Rutger K, who asked, which actor should play Dante in a Divine Comedy series? And I had to stop and think about this one for a minute and do some looking into trying to find the right actor for this role. And I'm going to base this entirely on looks alone with that really pronounced nose. I think if Adrian Brody got real grumpy and just mastered that cantankerous face, he'd probably be a good fit. He looks like he could get really scowly, and he's got the nose for it, especially now that he's a little bit older. He's kind of got that same thin, grizzled kind of features that I picture for Dante, or like from the images that we see of Dante. I think that would be a pretty good fit. So that's it for part one. Join us again tomorrow, and I will answer a couple more questions.